You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. What if the quality of your social connections is the missing piece to better mental health? Discover more in today's episode. This episode contains adult subject matter and some listeners may be triggered by this content. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, our guest shares his powerful story of overcoming social anxiety and depression without therapy or medication. He takes us through the turning points that helped him build confidence, find clarity, and transform his life into one of purpose and connection. Ondra Němčík is a mindset coach, international speaker, best-selling author, content creator, and community leader who overcame depression and social anxiety without therapy or medication. He has worked in 8 different fields in 4 different countries before becoming fully self-employed at the age of 22. Since then, he has been a digital nomad, visiting 20-plus countries. His expertise is helping individuals overcome social anxiety, find their purpose and passion in life, and start their impact-driven businesses. Here is my interview with Ondra Němčík. Hi, Ondra. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because social health secrets is such an intriguing topic for our conversation today. And I'm really curious where that is going to take us and how we're going to tie that into mental health and well-being. So I'm very excited for our conversation. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And would you like to start us off with maybe a little bit about yourself and your own story and how that relates to what you do today so that our listeners can get to know you a little bit and find out a little bit about what you do today?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I love to start there because I think before we get into any concepts or anything specific, we gotta talk about where we're coming from so we can build some sort of a connection towards what we're talking about. My journey with mental health really started a little bit over a decade ago. When I was around 13 years old, I was being bullied in school. My parents would fight basically every single day. I started developing really bad social anxiety and depression. And I remember I was so anxious all the time. I would walk around and look over my shoulder every minute or every 2 minutes, just so I could make sure that nobody's out there to get me. I was always hyper vigilant. And it just started weighing on, and I just started completely hating myself and hating my life. I say hating myself because I knew that I'm the shy, anxious person. I know I couldn't stand up for myself. I know I cannot do these things. That's why it started being not just hating outside, but also hating myself. And it got to the point where in my small town, where I'm from in the Czech Republic, it's an industrial town, there's a lot of freight trains coming through. And a lot of stories started popping up of people jumping in front of the trains to commit suicide. And I started thinking about doing the same. And I remember as it was getting daily and louder, I was just like, well, I don't really want to die. I don't really want to do that. But I just can't live like this anymore. And then 2 things happened that completely changed my life. One, I somehow don't remember how, but I discovered videos of random acts of kindness. And after school, I would just watch on my phone these compilations of people doing random acts of kindness, like from small things like helping somebody across the street to big things like running into a building that's on fire to save a dog or save a baby. And I would just cry my eyes out because in my world around me, it seemed like everybody was evil, everybody was judgmental, everybody was selfish, everybody was actually trying to hurt me. And over here, I saw that there are awesome, amazing people out there in the world. And I saw that maybe I just have to go out and find these people. And I also made a connection that I have to become one of them so that they want to hang out with me. That was the first thing that happened. It gave me hope. It gave me direction, right? At least now I knew, okay, there's people out there. I need to go find them and become one of them. That gave me a lot of hope and a direction, whereas before I felt hopeless and completely lost. I had no direction. And the second thing that happened is, I very specifically remember this. I Googled how to be happy. Literally went on Google and I Googled how to be happy. And I didn't really expect to find anything in that specific moment. I think it was more of a desperate act. But I found all of this advice in this world of personal development and self-help. And I became obsessed because I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, there's actually answers out here of like how I can become happier, how I can change my own brain, how I can build more confidence, how I can do all this. And there's other people out there. There's like groups and apps and forums that other people are sharing how they've done it or how their journey has been. This is amazing. And I would just spend hours and hours and hours feeding my brain with practical psychology tips and with all of these self-help advice alongside outside of school. And it started really transforming my life. I started changing the way I thought, changing my daily emotions. I started changing my habits and what I did. We can get more into that a little bit later of what specifically I did and how it impacted me and the reality of the journey, because it wasn't like, okay, I'm different now. I've Googled how to be happy. I've found the answers and I'm all happy now. Obviously, that's not how it works. But that was really the beginning of the journey and what started changing my life in a massive way that I couldn't have even imagined back then.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I feel when you talk about your journey, especially with the bullying and those negative things that you experienced, I really feel you coming through in that way of saying, well, I don't think life is supposed to be this way. And what can I do? And I find this really curious that you actually started looking for things and Googling things, because a lot of people don't really know what to do in those situations, or they might not actually find any support and say, okay, well, this is it for me. This is how I have to live. So very exciting that you actually searched for things and you looked to see what could be done. I think that could make a huge difference in lives when people come to this point where they decide that something actually needs to change. So wonderful that you came to that point. And obviously, judging by our conversation today, you did find ways and steps that you could take to move forward. And we'll get into that a little bit as well. I just want to point out for listeners, so this point where you decided that there was a change that you wanted to make and you wanted to take steps to find this elusive happiness piece in your life, what were some of the first things that you started doing after that? So we hop on the computer, we Google, all right, I want to be happy. But how did you translate that from the computer into something that would action in your own life?
Yeah, great question. Let's get into this a little bit. I remember I found a website that's called WikiHow. It's a huge website. There's tutorials for basically anything, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. And there was this article of how to be happy. And this is these steps. The main thing I really remember from the back in the day, what I found was that one of the steps, I think it was step number 2 or something like that, was be confident. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's going to be the key for me because I'm not confident. I'm super shy. I'm anxious. I'm always scared of people. Definitely not confident. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? Back on Google, how to be confident. And again, I don't really specifically remember any of the specific steps or anything like that. I think looking back, one of the things, just starting to learn these things and continuously feeding my brain, feeding my mind with this positive and constructive ideas started changing me already. And I think that's a big stage in growth development. When you start feeding your brain, I like this idea of this metaphor of a meat grinder. So let's say you're grinding meat and you're putting in like really old, moldy meat, and you're grinding it, and this old stuff, this nasty stuff is coming out. all of a sudden, if you start putting in really delicious, new, amazing meat and you keep grinding it, still the old stuff is coming out until the new is complete, until it's completely out and the new meat replaces it. That's kind of how it works with our brain. I was taking in all of this negativity. So negativity was coming out. And what's basically coming out of our brains are mostly thoughts and emotions. So my brain was producing negative thoughts and emotions all the time. And now I started feeding it with more positive, and it took a while to click in, but all of a sudden my brain started producing more positive thoughts and positive emotions as well. So that was a big step in the beginning, I think, that itself, and sticking with it and keep learning it and keep consuming it. And another thing, I'm not sure if I found out that morning routine can change your life and that morning routines are really important, or if I made the connection myself. But I remember thinking I need to start my day in a better way than just waking up and being like, oh, I hope that it's not going to be too bad in school today. I was in a defense mode in a way every morning because, oh, I hope school is not going to be too bad. I don't really want to go, but I have to go, right? So I started waking up a little bit earlier and going for a run in the mornings. Pretty radical for a 13-year-old kid to start going for a run in the mornings, right? But that impacted me in a big way. And now I've named it as my confidence building habit, because it really started building more physical strength. It started building more mental strength, because it's very hard to wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run. And it started building more confidence overall. And a little extra for me personally, because I thought that it's just really cool that I can wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run. Like, that's badass. That helped with my confidence as well. With other people, they thought that I'm crazy and whatever, but I didn't really mind, because that was my way of, like, I saw it. This is my way of healing my mental health and becoming a better version of myself. And so in the earliest stages, I think it was the combination of the two. My morning routine, my running, and feeding my brain and continuously learning new things. And later on, I added cold showers, I added gratitude journaling, I added meditation and all of these different things as I kind of moved on. And of course, the journey was like, I have to say here, it wasn't like, okay, you know what, from tomorrow, I'm just going to wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run every day. And then I just started doing it every day. Hell no. I think maybe the first day I failed already. And I was, okay, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And then failed it again. Okay, I'm going to try again next time. And then finally I did it. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. I did it for 2 days and I failed again. And then I woke up like 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh, I didn't go for my runs for like 2 weeks. Okay, let me try again. And it was really this process of changing that habit and adopting that habit was really tough, but it helped. I was committed to it. I was like, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And then I kept it a secret in the first year or so. I didn't tell anybody, not my parents, not my classmates. Literally, I told nobody. And I was just like, I'm just going to do this. This is for me. This is for myself. I just have to do it. After I became pretty consistent with it, I'm not sure if I started telling people or somehow people find out. I remember how my mom found out. She was not happy about it. I can tell the story maybe a little bit later. But my classmates, I remember they kind of started teasing me about it. And they were like, oh, so did you go for your run today? Especially later in high school. I've been doing it for years at that point. And they were like, so did you go for your run today? And they would like make fun of me. And I was like, yeah, I did. Or not today. I was always kind of honest about it. But they made fun of me. But for me, it was like this. First of all, it basically saved my life. And also helps me create the next stages of my life. And I saw it very important. And other people didn't understand. So those were the few things that I did in the beginning.
Yeah. Wow. As I'm listening to you, and you've been doing this for years now, you started at a very young age. How did you keep motivated to keep doing that? Because it's a lot of work to motivate yourself every day to get up at 5 and do your run in the morning routine. And I think a lot of people might not be able to stick that out, especially if they don't have some kind of support system or accountability buddy or somebody to share that with. So what drove you? What kept you motivated? What did you connect that with to make sure that you got up in the morning and did your morning routine, even if it maybe didn't happen every single morning? But I think by and large, you did it for a long time.
Yeah, I did it for a very long time, and I've ran lots and lots and lots. it definitely didn't happen every morning. To answer your question, I think it was this idea and this connection that this is the habit or this is the main thing that's going to help me get out of this mental prison that I was in, and is going to help me not get back to it. That second piece was, I think, a big importance as well, because as I was building more confidence and I became more social and I was getting better and better, it was like, well, I feel like maybe I don't have to run anymore because I've healed myself in a way. And I can definitely notice if I don't run for a longer period of time, I feel it. I'm like, something's off. Okay, let me see. Oh, I haven't been running. That's why. I felt the benefits, I guess, really early. In the earliest stages, it was like, this is going to be the way that saves me. And I have to do it every day in order for it to work. And then later on, it was more so like, I know what this has done for me and I want to keep it going. And it became more so a part of me. It became who I am. And it became part of my identity. I was like, that's what I do. I just wake up at 5 a.m. and go for a run. Like, that's what I do. That's who I am. And that made it really easy after a few years of actually doing it.
Yeah, because I can see that motivation piece being sort of a huge thing. And I think here is where we could maybe also talk a little bit about what you ended up doing coming forward, because of course, the things that you ended up doing and now working with your own clients and building a community, that seems to me like those are some of the big support pieces that you maybe didn't have at the time that you are now offering to others. So do you want to maybe unpack that a little bit and talk about how this journey brought you forward and what you do with that today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start here again. Back then, especially before I discovered this whole world of self-improvement, I truly felt like, and I truly believed that my social anxiety is a curse. And I absolutely 100% felt it's a curse and it's just something that I'm going to have to deal with probably for the rest of my life. Now, I have a way different perspective. Now, I believe that it wasn't a curse, not even close. It was a gift. However, it was a gift wrapped in sandpaper. That's why it felt like a curse, because it looks kind of ugly. You touch it and it hurts. You try to unwrap it and it's like, oh, it hurts even more. I'm just going to leave it there. If you leave it there, it just grows. When I started unpacking, right, and it was very hard. It was very uncomfortable. Waking up at 5 a.m. was very hard. Again, I felt many times, but it also hurts physically to go for a run every morning like this. And then later on, when I started going out more socially and started practicing talking to strangers, that hurt as well. That was very uncomfortable. Getting rejected, getting laughed at, getting the judgmental looks, like that's not fun. That hurts. But going through that, I was able to unwrap the gift. On the other side, when I finally peeled almost the last layers, it really started shining through, and it gave me the gift of understanding what it's really like to struggle with something like this. And it gave me a deeper capacity to help others. It also gave me a deeper compassion towards other people who struggle with mental health, specifically social anxiety, but also other ways. I think it made me more of an empath. And it also gave me the skills and the knowledge that I can now give to other people. It gave me the story that I can give to other people, that they don't have to suffer as much. It will always be hard if you're dealing with something like that. It will always be very difficult. It's not to say that you get somebody who's going to cure you like this. That most likely doesn't exist. You still have to do a lot of the work. You still have to go through it. But having that support, somebody to keep you accountable, it just makes it much faster. Instead of taking 6 years to struggle through all of this, it would have taken me maybe 2 years of the same amount of work. If I knew what I was doing and I had the support, if I didn't have to stumble through it just completely by myself. I started making that connection of like, I think I want to share my story and helping other people. And that unlocked this idea of being a coach and having an online business and to start becoming a speaker and becoming a podcast, hosting events and doing all of the things that I do. So it ties into it directly, because if I didn't go through any of that, then there's no way that I'd be traveling the world with my business now. There's no way that I'd be hosting events. There's no way I'd be on a podcast. There's no way I'd have the friends that I have now. There's no way I'd have the network that I have now. There's probably no way I wouldn't even have my relationship that I have now with my fiance. All of this came from that gift that was perceived as a curse at first, but it really was a gift just wrapped in sandpaper.
I love that, how you describe that, because I think there's a lot of listeners that can identify with that, of having gifts wrapped in sandpaper in various forms that at first they're very uncomfortable to look at, very uncomfortable to work with. But we discover a lot of our personal strength and also maybe our passions and our purpose through some of these nastier gifts that we are given. So yeah, that's amazing what you have done with that and coming forward. And I really feel that no matter what we're working with in our mental health, our physical health, and our emotional health, there are ways that if we are interested to find the change, there are always ways that we can find that work for us, that work for the individual person. So what a wonderful journey. Now, there's one concept that I'm so curious about, and that is social health, because I really want to know what that is and what you understand under social health, because we don't really hear that too often in mainstream, I don't think. So if you want to maybe give our listeners a bit of an insight and a bit of a clue of how you see social health.
Very, very happy to. So I was kind of surprised that your team somehow found it and named it this way, because I'm like, where did they even get this? Because I haven't talked about this much. I came up with this idea not long ago, about maybe a month ago. I was just coaching people and I started to see the connection between mental health and social relationships and support structures. And most of the people who struggle with mental health, they don't really have good friendships. They don't really have a lot of confidence. They don't really have a good support structure. There's this TED Talk, I believe, that's named Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong or something like that. And basically it ties it into the antidote or the solution to addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. And the most of addicts or people who struggle and who self-medicate with whatever choice these days, by the way, it's addiction to these things mostly. It doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol and things like that. It's an addiction to these things. And so I started making this connection. I'm like, social health. It's just kind of, the idea kind of popped into my mind. And then I started doing a little bit of research. And there are some people talking about it. I've personally never heard anybody else talk about it either publicly like this until I searched like on a Google a little bit and I saw that there are some articles and things like that. But I'm like, okay, well, I think I can create this concept of social health kind of myself and see how that itself can help people that I work with and that I coach and that I come across. So I divided it into two legs. One leg of the social health is your own confidence. And that's divided into three parts that I will get into. And then the second leg is depth of relationships. It's the depth. It's not really the volume. You don't have to have a lot of relationships. It's really the depth and how well you are connected. I love a quote. I think I heard this from one of my best friends. He's also a coach. He also used to struggle with the bullying and depression and social anxiety and things like this. That's why we connected so well. And he says that connection happens at the speed of vulnerability. And this is a problem that I see a lot with people who struggle with mental health. They try to hide it from everybody. And of course, you don't want to go out there and be like, hey, I'm mentally broken or something like that. That's not a good strategy. But you need to have some people that you trust, that you feel safe with, that you can share with vulnerably. And that creates a really depth of connection. And I do believe that if you improve your social health, meaning your confidence and your depth of relationships, you will improve your mental health. Like it goes together. It's tied in very well. And so I'll get into this a little bit more. Under the leg of confidence, I put self-love because that relates to how confident you feel and what's your relationship with yourself. Then you have social skills, and then you have social habits under confidence. The social habits might need a different place. Again, it's just a concept, right? That's very new. And on the depth of relationships, we have friendships, romance, and work. Friendships, as in like friends, romance relationships, romantic relationships, intimacy, and work relationships, right? If you have awesome friends, but your coworkers are awful to you and you're getting bullied at work, well, then your social health isn't that great still. And I came up with this. If you want to score yourself to like self-analysis test, it's 0 to 30 points. And each of these subcategories, these 6 that I just listed, 3 under confidence and 3 under depth of relationships, you rate yourself from 0 to 5. And that will help you analyze where you can start improving your social health. So under self-love, I put 0 is I hate myself. 5 is I love myself fully. So you give yourself a number between those two. With social skills, 0 is I just can't talk to people. 1 is I can talk to anyone, anywhere with no problem. With social habits, 0 is I have destructive social habits. For example, might be a little bit confusing. For example, my social habit is that I go out with my stoner buddies and we smoke weed every day. That's a pretty bad destructive social habit. Or I go drinking every Thursday or every 2 days with my group of friends because that's just what we do. That's a pretty destructive social habit. And 5 is I have very fulfilling and growth-oriented social habits, meaning I go to events, I go to masterminds, I connect with people who are focused on personal growth. And then on the side of friendships, we have 0 is I don't have friends. 5 is I have ride or die friends, people that you can be completely honest, you can rely on them, at least 1 or 2. 0 is I don't have a partner and I don't know what I want. And 5 is I have the best life partner, or I'm really happy being single, but I know exactly what I'm looking for in my future romantic partner. Either one can be a 5 in your situation. It doesn't have to be you have to be in a relationship to have good social health this way. And in work is I hate my coworkers or my boss. And 5 is I love my work buddies and I have an amazing camaraderie within my work environment. So you can go through this, give yourself a number between 1 to 5 to each of these that I just listed. You can listen to this back if you missed it. And based on that, you can be like, oh, okay, well, my self-love is pretty high, but my social skills are pretty low. Okay, let me work on my social skills. Or, okay, my friendships are pretty good, but my romantic side of life isn't that great. So this is a quick self-analysis, I think, that can help people a lot in where they need to go, with which part of social health they can start improving.
That's a pretty amazing framework. I actually really like that. And that's very helpful to kind of see where we're at. It's almost like building that wheel of life graphic to kind of see where we're at in our social health.
Yeah.
I've not really specifically heard this being connected to mental health. So I think this is a very, very great idea to integrate that, because having mental health challenges does isolate you. And we tend to then just kind of close that door or cancel meetings and appointments because we don't want people to really find out how we truly feel. Or maybe we also look the way we feel. We can't really shower or take care of ourselves in those moments when we're really down in the pits. So that social health piece, I think, could be a very, very interesting piece to take a look at for many people. I noticed that you don't have a category in there for family. So do we put our family under the friends category, or where do we stick our family if we're having some challenges in our family?
Very good point. That probably has to be added as the next evolution. Yeah, that completely slipped my mind. I don't know. Didn't think about that because my family life wasn't that great. I was thinking, and living on the opposite side of my family. We have pretty deep connections, but not very frequent. Yeah, but very important. Damn. This is one of the reasons why I was like not really speaking out about it way too confidently of, oh, this is what you do. But yeah, that would be definitely one to disprove my point. It's best to talk about it publicly because then other people can give you feedback and ideas. So like, I think this is missing or this might be better. Thank you for that. That's amazing. You're very right.
Yeah, I hope that expands your framework a little bit. That's amazing. I do think
absolutely.
Talk about that for sure. I think this is helpful for so many people. So yeah, listeners, you can use this little tool to score your own social health in your own lives. So if you're feeling that you're encountering challenges and you want to kind of see where you're at or the pieces that you might want to work on, then you can just go back in this episode a little bit and listen to Ondra explain this framework for social health, which I think will be extremely helpful. So I appreciate you sharing that, even though it's sort of a beginning stage of it. It takes a lot of courage to put that out there.
It's a concept.
Yeah. So thanks so much for sharing that. I think this will be very helpful for listeners. And you know what? I'm going to start using that too. I like the idea of that. So wonderful.
Yeah, take it, run with it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'll add one thing. I think where I found that this can be very helpful is the concept of mental health can be a little bit too abstract. And it's so different for people based on whatever it is that you personally are struggling with. And I think this makes it more concrete and more specific, especially if you rate yourself and you figure out, oh, this is my lowest number right here. It will tie back into mental health and physical health, all of this. Even just take your social habits, for example, right? If you change your social habits, you change your social circle, and you go from read buddies every day to being in masterminds and having growth-oriented social habits, that can completely change everything about your life. It can be much more concrete and you can maybe see results fast. It's still very hard. Don't get me wrong. Like changing these things and improving these things will still be very hard. But in having a specific direction and being able to see changes and results, I think this is where it can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And to see that being applied in your own life to your own personal situation rather than somebody just saying, okay, well, you're not feeling well, do some more exercise or do some yoga or meditate. This is very concrete, like you said, right? People can actually see how this plays out in their own lives. So that's exactly why I think this will be very helpful. So keep talking about your social health concept. I think more people need to hear this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, if our listeners are curious and they've heard part of your journey now, they've heard how you've come to do what you do today, how can they connect with you and what kind of services or programs or offerings do you have? How can listeners work with you if they'd like to know that?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. The best place to find me right now is on my Instagram. And the username is RoboHumanist. If you want to search for it right now, you can probably find the link somewhere. And I work with people basically on two levels. One level is just mental health, just social anxiety, being able to start building some of the basic confidence, introducing the foundational pieces, changing your habits, and building those social skills and stepping out there. And the second level is with people who maybe don't struggle with the severe case of social anxiety, and you might have some friends and things like that, but you want to step out, you want to share your art, you want to perform better, you want to dance, or you want to do this. And maybe you're a little bit too shy about that. You're thinking of, what are other people going to say if I start sharing my paintings or sharing my songs? What if people don't like it? What if they judge me? What if this? It's still a version of social anxiety. I also help people with that. A lot of it ties into starting a business. I want to start a business, but what if I fail? Or what if other people judge me or get rejected and things like that? If you go on to my Instagram, it will point you in a direction of if you want to go this way or more this way. The approach is a little bit different, and you can find free guides and some free resources on there as well. Yeah, best place to find me and go deeper in the work.
Amazing. And we, of course, will be linking to all of Ondra's offerings in the show notes as well. So go and have a look there at his Instagram handle and how you can find him. And from there, you can find all of the amazing resources, some freebies that he just pointed out. And of course, depending on your own situation, you may want to choose to work with him. And if you do, let us know how that works out for you. I'm always curious to hear what happens when our listeners connect with our guests. There's usually a lot of magic that happens. So definitely like to hear about that. And you can find us on Instagram as well. Look us up there under the journey and send me a message, let me know, and check out the show notes. But I just want to thank you for being here today, Ondra, and sharing your journey and also your novel concept of the social health, which was very, very interesting. So thanks for your time today. And thank you for sharing that wisdom that you have collected over the years to help our listeners have maybe a little bit shorter journey to the things that you figured out over those many years. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It was a wonderful time.
Yeah, amazing. I enjoyed it as well. And I learned so many new things. I always learn new things on the podcast. So thank you for that very enjoyable time and take care, Ondra.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejōrni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.